chair tonight's meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting for the Parks and Rec Commission, Wednesday, March 20th, 2019.
If I may, I've been doing this for over 10 years with Susan, and this is the first time I've seen her chair an event. It's very exciting.
I've done it before, actually.
You have?
Yeah,
I didn't know
like
I was
3-4
there.
times,
That
before
one.
you came on,
Maybe
actually.
before my presentation.
Yep, okay.
So far, she's doing really well.
Really well.
Very for quick meetings. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the February 27, 2019 minutes. Do we have any changes for those minutes? Is everybody get a chance to read it? No changes?
I was not present.
I wasn't at
That
that
was not
meeting.
Okay,
present.
so
But I-
Mike was not.
But I attached my status update.
Oh, yes, we
Yeah.
did get that. I think there was one change that I wasn't sure about. One comment from the public. I think it was from Adele. And it said something like, in the first sentence, it said something about, okay, Ms. Geary responded that was correct and that 600,000 had been, it said deferred to Highland Farm. Do you mean deferred?
Deferred.
Okay, so that should be deferred, just in case. And it said that we had received news from the governor, and I don't know if that was what really was said. Did you say that? That's why we requiring them to tighten funds. I don't think it was any news from the governor.
There was news from the state.
State, yeah, let's
Yeah,
change it to
state.
state, because I think governor sounds like, we got something that was, anyway, those are my big two changes. Any other changes? Nope. Okay, let's, motion to approve the minutes as amended. You were here?
Yes,
Yes,
I was.
okay. Mary Louise, first, second. Sarah, all in favor? There are only three of us, everybody else is deferred. Did you get that? Amy, Mike, and
I wasn't
Erica?
here.
Deferred. Yeah, no. Okay, and then the next item on the agenda is the discussion on possible smoking ban in all parks. You want to talk a
Sure.
little about that?
So I emailed you a bunch of information, actually it was in your packets too.
Yes.
About, certainly this is no new trend throughout actually the country of banning smoking in public areas. And ironically, David Knopf, the health director, had sent this to me today that's actually in the General Assembly as a bill. And you can hand one to Jamie too. And again, I put it on the agenda as a, starting discussion about whether or not this is something that would be, benefit the town. And, personally, I think it wouldn't be shocking. But I'm opening up for discussion with the commission.
I think it's a great idea, but how are you going to police it? How are you going to make people comply, or people that don't want to comply?
Right. This is not a new thing.
Right.
Matter of fact, last month at our Leadership Development Network, we had a conference call with at least, Jamie, would you say 16, 17 professionals throughout the country, and that was one of our topics of discussion. So we had a director from Canada, a director from Wisconsin, and where they have already enacted that. And yes, that is a concern, but it's in the policies, and lots of policies we have today. Even with dogs and with how do you manage it? You're not there on site. You're not a park ranger that's in every single park. But it is a policy, and when you have it in the policies, it's easier to manage. Police have better understanding of what they can help with. If we don't have it as a policy, then say at the beaches, our lifeguards have no reason to go tell someone I'm sorry, we don't allow smoking here, in the public.
Can I pose an opinion?
Sure.
If this is the right time to do it. So I'm not a smoker. My husband's not a smoker. My parents are not smokers. My children, I believe, are not smokers. I hope they're not. But I think this is going a step too far. I feel like being outside is sort of a liberal freedom, and I think there's people in town that might get upset by it. So I'm not saying it on any kind of personal family defense, but I am saying it because I think that I understand that it's the right idea, and I'm pro-environment, and I'm pro-family-friendly space and green space. I think the cigarette butts are disgusting, and I think walking behind somebody vaping is gross, just like a cigarette and everything. But I do feel like our parks are sort of a refuge, well, that's the wrong word, like a refuge of a place where people can go and enjoy their personal time. And if that's one of your guilty pleasures, like maybe you should be allowed to have that on an outdoor basis.
Yeah, I'd like to talk in regards to that too. And some of the initiatives and other areas have been to, I think, matter of fact, even the library has set aside a small
smoking area.
space
Yeah.
where off the premise of a large area where people congregate, that they would still have an area to smoke. But as you say, butts, I mean, in our sand, we talk about, the cleanliness of wanting to have really clean parks and clean area. And an example for me, same thing, not a family of smokers, and I understand that there are people that may want to. They used to smoke in restaurants, they used to smoke in airplanes, it all changed. I was at a state park beach, and it was packed, and then we had a couple that came in, set up their pole area and smoking, and it was so hard. We were trying to enjoy the beach too, and I was really surprised at myself because it wasn't the first time I was around smoking, but it was so hard to sit there, and the air was so tough to breathe. And so it's an interesting conversation. I completely get it. Matter of fact, we talked in our office about, what type of response we would get from the community, and to expect that we may get some of that. And interestingly enough, our office felt that it could be a real easy change, which was interesting, and I feel the way you do. I think there are going to be people that could be upset by it, but I think overall, my feeling is I think people will be most understanding.
If I can, I share Erica's sentiment. I could have said it better myself. I mean, to whatever extent folks would like to use that refuge to kind of satisfy some of those guilty pleasures if it's, not crossing the line. But I also feel like, sitting on the beach and kind of putting my hand in the sand and coming up with a handful of cigarette butts is a little more than I'm comfortable with. Maybe something we should consider is to think about a campaign to build some sensitivity around it and see if the community begins to respond. It's a little goofy maybe. What comes to mind is like the jaywalking campaign when I was a kid, don't cross the street in the middle, like you build kind of a sensitivity around it and people kind of internalize it, and that changes behavior a little bit. But what it also does is maybe does set the stage so that if and when we decide we do want to take the next step, people have been put on notice for a while and they'll recognize like, well, wait a minute, this is really, there's small children that run around the beach and, it's, so okay, you want to kind of go ahead and, kind of have, smoke a cigarette, but maybe we should have some receptacles for people to put butts in. We should kind of remind people, pick it up, don't drop it in the sand, and get people to take some personal responsibility for the fact that it's a shared space. It's not their own space, and it's not a giant ashtray as well. So
I really like that, actually. A lot of corporate environments sort of steer your behavior by where they put out those receptacles you mentioned. So in a way, maybe a campaign combined with receptacles might influence behaviors in a way that's... Yeah,
at the very least, pick it up and take it with you,
yeah.
Or pick it up and put it in a receptacle on your way out. So I like the idea. I do feel maybe it's a bit too far for me to just kind of basically ban it. But I think people should take some more personal responsibility for maintaining the space.
Right, and I think this is the reason for the discussion. This is a public meeting that will touch the public as far as they want to see, being on Channel 79, and certainly we, in our minutes, those that really care about what we're talking about. I'm not certain exactly what direction to go in, but I'm feeling as if, why would we spend the dollars to put all these receptacles out there, when the feeling is that we want our parks to be clean and the air to be clean, and, I guess I would be okay with one area in a park, but again, this is up for all of us to talk about.
So, before I opine on what I think about it, I guess I would be interested in knowing the impetus for you raising this. Mm-hmm. Is there a current problem with cigarette butts? Are people commenting to you that they're annoyed at the beach, that there's lots of smoking? What is, I mean, other
Our
than
Parks
this-
Department it's dirty, it can be dirty, there's areas around park benches that there's just all butts just thrown on the
Okay,
ground.
so there's a problem with people not cleaning up after themselves when they
Yes.
smoke. Okay,
Yes.
and is that across all parks, or is that
No, but
just
if
at-
you raise a good question, because, I mean, certainly maybe that's an area we can start. Maybe there is a survey we put out or some sort that asks those questions.
Well, I
Now,
think it
who's
can also
bothered by
be
it?
sort of anecdotal. I just am wondering from our maintenance people who have to clean up after this mess. Is it a problem at Cherry Lawn? Is it a problem at Wheat Beach? Is it a problem? So
Yeah.
maybe you could.
I
if you
haven't asked
don't
all
know-
those questions.
Yeah, so maybe you can just get some anecdotal
Sure.
feedback on that. And then with regards to, I'm not a smoker, nobody's a smoker. What you said resonated with me a lot. It's miserable to be near somebody when you're enjoying your time. It's your own space and your own refuge as well. To be interrupted with someone smoking can be very annoying. So for those people, I'm wondering if we can, and if that is a problem, if you haven't gotten any, maybe there's enough space and that's not an issue if you haven't gotten any complaints. But to that I might say maybe if there's something at Wheat Beach or, posting rules, if you are going to be, you're allowed to smoke, but if it's annoying to someone else or they complain, then you need to observe that it's infringing on your own privacy as well. So be considerate. So on the one hand, we want to be considerate and respectful of people's privacy to smoke. On the other hand, we do want to be respectful to the people who want to breathe without smoke. So, and that's, I think, you don't want to say to everybody you can't, but we do want to address this potential issue. Those are just some thoughts.
I mean, it sounds like, just from thinking about it, why, you wouldn't want to have the smoke just be out there is that it is, we all know secondhand smoke has
It's
impacts.
terrible, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's my only thing is if you're in a park and even if you're just standing there, you can get the impacts of that smoke. So I get that, I want to let people have that freedom too, but I'm very
But that's
concerned.
not our right. I don't see that as our right. To
But
tell people, that's their personal.
I know, but I'm saying that the public, if we found out that something was cancer causing, being near smoke, would we allow that to happen where the rest of our public is going to be there to kind of be exposed, children, especially at a beach or a park that we're talking about? We're not talking about an office building with older adults. We're talking about kids that the impacts of secondhand smoke in young children is far greater than in adults. All the studies say that.
Yeah.
So that's my concern about that. And going back to your
So
jaywalking.
We
certainly
do allow barbecuing.
Yeah, and that's
So
okay.
somebody
would bring that up.
But maybe
But-
playgrounds
yeah.
have a different.
But those are fixed. Like barbecues are fixed in a certain spot. Like you don't have you have a choice. You can just walk away from the barbecue.
Right.
Someone starts smoking right next to you. You're
It's
already sat
very
there with your
infringing.
kids with your beach mats or whatever. You're
Very
in a
different.
disadvantage. And then going back to your jaywalking suggestion, which was awesome about education, jaywalking is illegal. So I'm just saying, sometimes you need to have both to make something happen to work, to be effective.
Yeah.
So that's something.
But to your point, it wasn't as though,
Right.
because it was illegal,
Right.
you automatically got a ticket. The city governments, as an example, municipalities went out and they had campaigns to sensitize people to the fact that this, it's just not a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
Aside from being illegal, it's just not a good idea to do it.
Right.
So I think we'd make great progress if we could just get people to pick up after themselves, regardless. I almost see the parallel with what we've done with dogs now. It's a privilege. We're allowing people to walk dogs off leash on the beach now at certain times of the year. But we put people on notice. If you abuse that privilege is going to go away. And in a way, true. It's just a liberty, I guess we could say, but it's a privilege. And I'm more concerned with just the fact that people are considering they're leaving their junk on the beach in the way that they might leave a can or something else. And I think we should ask people, pick up after yourself.
They should pick up after them. Yeah.
But they don't,
And they don't. And they're not.
And some do, it's just like trash.
Yeah.
It's just like trash.
Yeah.
Well,
Some
I'd be
people
interested
do,
to
except
hear.
trash isn't giving you cancer,
Would you like to do some
secondhand smoke.
outreach with the public maybe, like setting a blast? Do you want to do a public hearing on it? I mean, what are you thinking? To kind of get more information?
My very first step was to say, here, let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. This is not a first time conversation throughout the country. Towns are doing it, state parks are doing
I
it.
mean, yeah, that's
They're
one of the
banning
thing
it.
is that when we did the
You know,
adopting,
so-
that was because stuff was happening like locally that we had to kind of adhere to. So, I mean, I think it's worth talking to our residents about it. Maybe, can you guys send a blast? Get some
Yeah,
feedback?
I don't
mean,
think a survey is such a bad idea.
No, I
you know, I
wouldn't
mean,
mind
put
it
some
either.
questions to it in
Or
terms
even
of.
just a reminder, we're opening
Yeah.
the beaches, it's the start of beach season, amongst other things, we'd like you guys to
Right,
just.
but banning is different than cleaning.
No, I'm not
No,
talking about banning, I'm
right,
talking
right.
about cleaning.
Right.
By the way, personally, I'd like to do a bit more research on this to understand,
Right.
like, is there a real secondhand smoke issue when you're talking about being out on the beach when there's a good breeze blowing? Like, what is the real kind of that? You're not in a small confined quarter or interior space. So I'd like to just understand that a bit more,
Sure, sure.
Certainly near the playgrounds. I mean, you raise an issue,
Right.
an important issue. Yeah, maybe if you could get back to us with a little research and some anecdotal evidence.
Well, I definitely sent that to you.
Okay,
It's right here, yeah, it's right here.
Different
Yeah.
information
Yeah,
that's
it's
in the
right
packet.
Okay, good.
She sent us
And have
information on
examples of
Spokane,
different- Yep,
different
policies
schools
that have been made.
and what they're
And,
doing.
and things that have been going on around the town.
No, not around town.
No, I meant anecdotal evidence around the town, like what your maintenance
I
guys are
certainly
telling
can bring
us.
back more detail.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, but right now it's just about starting the discussion.
I think it's a good conversation. I don't mean to derail it at all.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have it, and I think over time also these things evolve. I mean, look, CVS announced today that they're selling CBD products, so.
Really?
Yeah, they don't sell tobacco, but they sell marijuana-based products, so times are changing, and that's fine. But to that end, I think it'd be really helpful to understand what other states have put in place. You said you talked to a bunch of other states, and there's
Yeah.
some research here.
Yes.
But I just was just looking at the Connecticut state website and stuff, like how far does it go? It looks like on the state website, the survey actually doesn't even go to any outdoor spaces at all. It's like looks like 17 or 20 categories, but they all look like they're indoors. So it'd be good to know on a Connecticut basis, what are our
Okay.
relative
Yeah, I think
values,
that's
and
a
on a
great question.
statewide basis,
I think that's a great question.
what can we lean on? Yeah, just to know how to progress in a nice, natural way.
Okay, so next meeting I'll try to come back with as much as I can
Okay.
for you. And if I don't have all of it, then come back to me.
Sure, yeah.
Great.
We're
I'm not looking for an immediate anything, I'm
That's
just
a
looking
good
for a
discussion.
Start the
discussion.
Thanks
conversation.
for raising it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good conversation.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is update on parks improvement projects. The first one is an update on Pear Tree Point Beach. Mike?
Yeah, sure. So I think the commission's, well aware, that we've been going through a process with the committee. We went through and kind of essentially selected a design firm following, the whole RFP and proposal process and interview process at the beginning of February. With that started the contract discussion process with the firm that we had selected, a company called Lantec out of Westport. And as we proceeded through that process, we were provided a draft of a contract and then a series of discussions and some email exchanges. What we learned, and in fact, a very important aspect or factor that worked into our selection was, and maybe just to back up and set some context, we ended up with 5 proposals when we went out with our RFP, 2 of which were above our stated budgetary target of $150,000. Out of the $150,000, we used $5,000 for a survey, essentially $5,000, to do a survey, land survey of the beach area. Left us with about $145,000. So that was essentially the pot of money that we had to spend on the design process. Of the 5 firms, 2 were above that number, so they were, as much as they were certainly very, very well qualified, they exceeded our numbers, so they were disqualified. The 3 remaining looked like they were all well within that number. We went through the process, we selected Lantec, we began the contract discussion with them. And what we learned as we went through the discussion is that that number that we believed was a fixed price number that was within our budgetary target was, as it was turning out, was not the number that we were probably going to end up with. And what I mean by that is that what we were learning is that there were aspects of the work that was going to be done that hadn't been kind of factored into that number that Lantec had provided. And they couldn't give us an assurance as to what the ultimate number would be. So what it certainly was setting us up for would be to ultimately kind of get somewhere in the midst of the process, have exhausted our funds, and then have to come back to the town and ask for additional funds to complete the process. And of course, that's the definition of a fixed price bid is you get a clear definition based upon, in this case, an RFP as to what's going to happen. It's a commitment around that. And so with that brought us back to, of course, we had to kind of understand what we were learning through the process. We had a series of conversations amongst a number of us. We brought that information back to the committee, not this past meeting that took place earlier this evening, but the prior meeting. And what we decided was, and once again, all of these folks who came in with bids were all capable. And once again, our driving factor was to go with the least cost provider and to go with a provider that was in our budget. So it brought us to the point of having to essentially reconsider who we had selected. We went back, had a discussion amongst the committee, a prior meeting, which was 2 weeks back, and made the determination to bring Neil Hauk back in and have a conversation with Neil. And the purpose of that conversation was to assure ourselves that we understood what was in Neil Hauk's proposal and whether we were missing something again, to the extent that maybe there was some additional costs that went beyond what was originally in Neil's proposal. We met with Neil this evening, and Weston and Sampson and Neil's team. We went through, I think, a very a good detailed conversation with Neil. We drilled down in terms of all the aspects of what he had proposed to us. We went beyond that and further confirmed, some questions that we had around his ability to deal with kind of the set of objectives we had working in that coastal environment. Everything else that we felt we may have had remaining questions on. And the committee came away satisfied that Neil not only could do all of what he proposed that he would do within the number that he originally committed to, which was $144,000, but he also further satisfied us in terms of his team's ability to actually execute the work. And in fact, in Neil's case, he actually interestingly enough, went beyond in terms of the scope of services that he was would be providing what the other guys had done, and actually, I guess I could characterize it as almost like construction management. So not only kind of providing a full set of construction documents, but in fact, helping us select the construction firm, and then working along with us straight through the construction phase, right up through ribbon cutting. So with that, I think it was it's a kind of an interesting, kind of extraordinary place that we found ourselves in, of having to reevaluate the firm that we'd selected. But we made a determination to essentially deselect Lantec and select Neil Hauk. We've authorized Pam to move forward now with kind of the contracting process with Neil and his team. Pam will follow up with Lantec tomorrow. Great firm, great guys, not a reflection at all on who they are or their integrity here. Just tremendously talented. They've done really, really great work along the way. But as stewards of the town, and the responsibility that we have as a committee to kind of work within the numbers that we've been authorized to work with. It was important to us not to find ourselves in a position 6, 8, 10 months down the road where we're coming back asking for more money, when in fact we have a very, very good alternative here in Neil. So that's our update, and we built up a good head of steam. We had we're working through a great cadence of meeting every other week. I think the committee's working really, really well together from my perspective. We're kind of getting to know one another much better now, and the goal would to be to get to a point where hopefully we can get through the contract. Look, it's not over till it's over. Until you have a signed contract, you don't have a signed contract. But the goal here and the hope here is we'll finish the process now with Neil and move into the next phase, kind of pick up another head of steam here and start to make some progress and come back to the committee and report back to you guys in terms of some real work that we're doing.
Thank you very much.
That's my update.
That's really great. Neil did real quick each one.
Yes.
So he has a lot of experience with it, and Weston and Sampson.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think he'd be a great, if everything is finalized.
I believe
Moving
that's,
forward quickly.
that's true. Yeah.
Try and test it. Can I make a motion that maybe we move up the new business as we've done in the past, just because it's a school night to allow? Can we do that before we?
Sure,
I
why don't
think
we?
that's a great idea.
Just-
Okay.
In the past, I think we've done that sometimes, and
Yeah.
it might be,
Okay.
I don't know if nobody objects.
Yeah.
No, I need a motion to do that, and then.
Can I make a motion to
Move.
move new business up
To-
to between 4A and B?
Sure,
And I would second that.
okay. Got that, Jamie? All in favor? Okay, we're gonna have a presentation by Cormac Brown, who is a Life Scout in Troop 53. He's a junior at Darien High School. He's been a scout since first grade, and he's gonna talk about his project at Woodland Park.
If you don't mind passing these down.
I think you guys received this on email too.
Yes.
Just in case he's kind enough to provide us with
Oh, I got a podium.
a printed.
Hi, I'm Cormac Brown. I'm part of Troop 53. I'm trying to get Eagle Scout, and one of the requirements is that I do a project that helps the community. And I wanted to do my project in Woodland Park. I walk my dog there a lot, and I've noticed some things that I thought I could improve on if I ever did a project. I've noticed that not all the trail signs are consistent throughout the park. I've also noticed that there is no map of the park anywhere in the park, and the one that is online only holds 3 out of 4 trails. There's the white, blue, and yellow trail on there, but in the park there's also a red trail. Some of the trails aren't even marked, so my idea was that I would create a whole new map with the help of Mrs. Daly and Mrs. Cirillo, who I've been in contact with. Mrs. Cirillo is the president of Friends at Woodland Park. I also had the idea to put down wooden walkways over areas that experience mud all year round. This was just something that I thought could help. It would only be like 2 or 1 walkways. This project will take around 3 to 4 weeks to do, 3 to 4 weekends to do, depending on how many people I will have. But to do this, I will walk up and down the trails and mark which trail markers I want to take down or repaint over, which plastic trail signs that they currently have on top, which ones I want to take down, because I pretty much want to get rid of all of them because most of them are broken and the paint on them is fading. Along with installing the map in the gazebo, and I think that is all. Any questions?
Can you tell me where the map is right now?
The map, there is no map in the park at all.
Or the whatever's in that kiosk.
There's right on the last page. It shows the picture of the gazebo, and there's nothing in there right now.
And where is that? Is that the entrance?
That's
symbol?
right at the front of the Woodland Park, right next to Middlesex.
It's Middlesex.
On the new map, I want to add some more trail markers. They did a good job on this map, except they only marked where Middlesex Road is. I think it would help if I marked all the surrounding roads along with any other landmarks, such as Turtle Pond or the benches that they have here.
So Cormac, the map that we're looking at here, that's the existing map?
That was the one that I found on the Parks and Rec website online.
Got it.
Cormac, have you been over to another property that we have, which is Dunlop Selleck's Woods on the other side of town?
I have visited once or twice.
Okay, so the only thing I would say is that as you're going through this process, presuming that it's all going to go forward, we've had a couple of Boy Scout, Eagle Scout projects that have gone on there, and we also have the benefit of Chris Filmer, who is like an elder statesman in this town of Woods. He is incredible. He just did the DCA Woods with the DCA, and he created a lot of the trails in Stellux, and he really hasn't done too much over in Woodlands. Anyways, be really happy to put you in touch with him. In terms of his knowledge base, is phenomenal. He's a former land trust president too. He's just kind of walks on water, but he's so he might be useful to you. Is my point.
That'd be great. Thank you, Mrs. Morris.
Sophie Cirillo's been working with Chris already, so he's actually talked to them, they've talked together and also with Cormac about what they've done, so it's great. So she sees Woodland as a kind of hopefully like Stellix Woods.
Right, they want some of this.
Yeah, like what Chris has done.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's been very good helping.
Good.
So.
I think that it's about time. I can't believe nobody's done this before. I'm thrilled
Yeah.
with this proposal.
That
Really,
sounds great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Great idea.
What will you use? What material will you use for the trail markers?
The idea, I had two ideas. One was given by Mrs. Daly. I was gonna repaint them over with just environmentally safe paint, but Mrs. Daly's idea was to put up metal trail markers that, unlike the plastic ones, won't break and will last much longer.
Yeah.
They stand up better to vandalism also.
Excuse
not
me?
Not that we expect vandalism, but
Oh.
sometimes it happens, and the metal ones survive longer.
Yeah.
And are those in the ground?
No, they go on trees.
On the trees.
Yeah.
You mark them at like a
And
little bit.
metal's okay for the trees, huh?
You just put a light nail, you have to use a certain type of nail, and put them in, we use them at our property in Vermont, and you have them in different colors, and they're very.
About
Okay.
this size.
Yeah,
And you put them just above.
We have them at Tilly though too, I believe, that there's some information on the trees about what type of trees they are.
Right.
Yeah.
I think those are slightly.
Those are actually tree signs, aren't they? I mean, you're talking about the tree signs, not the tree.
That are on the trees.
Yeah, those
though.
are different. That was another Eagle Scout project where he did tree descriptions.
Right, that's what I meant, I just meant the marker itself.
Oh, yeah, no, it's like
in the
this.
tree.
Yeah.
No, they're little, they're like this big, so they're
Okay, so
not
they're
very
bigger.
invasive, and they're colorful, and you can have them different things, but
Cormac,
anyway.
are you anticipating any particular challenges with this?
No. Some of the work I was gonna spread to a few friends who I trust and I believe are smart enough to understand. They can help me with marking the trails, which can later on during the project I can tell people my plan and like what to do when they see how I mark the trees.
Yeah.
Is your map going to be to scale, or are you going to try to make it?
I'm gonna try and blow it up as big as I can in the kiosk, and probably leave some room if anyone wants to put whatever's in there.
You'll
Yeah.
work from this map as a.
It'll be a basis, but Mrs. Cirillo also has different maps that I could use. So I'll be working with her a lot.
How many markers do you anticipate would be out there?
That's a good question. There will be. So I want to redo all of the markers that are in the park, along with adding a new trail that's already there, but there are no markers on the trees.
And the trail has been established, the one that's not marked?
Yeah, the trail it's already a trail, but there are no markers around.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought, we
Yeah.
walked it 2 days ago, and there's a lot of.
And was an existing trail that's just unmarked now, or is
I
it
think-
a brand new one?
It just seems like you could see that people walked
It's
on it.
evolved.
It's definitely,
evolved.
it's very organic, it's evolved,
We
it's
have-
pretty wide.
We have a map in the
This
in
one?
the office.
Is it different from this one?
Well,
That's on the line?
it goes back, and it was a study that was done for the trails. I don't know how old it is, but it's in really good shape. Just, I'm curious to see whether or
Maybe you
not
can
that's
compare
on
it.
there.
Yeah.
Sophie has a bunch too, it might be one of the ones she has, you know, but
Okay.
they talked about dropping pins and doing GPS stuff, so it's a little bit more, could be a little bit more advanced,
Yeah, okay.
you know, who knows,
Great.
and that'll help with scale, too.
So Cormac, nice presentation. I'm always impressed with people when they don't need notes.
Thank
You did a
you.
good job. Can you elaborate on your vision for the wooden walkways? I think that's gonna be a lot of work.
Um,
And
Oh.
you already have a
I had
big
the,
effort already?
Yeah, I had like a
so-
whole list of things I could do just to make my project seem a little more beefier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't going to be enough. The wooden walkways, they're similar to the ones on the Appalachian trails. Most of you don't know them, but they're small and they're only gonna go across
So
like-
are they like a board?
pretty much
Okay.
like two boards with traction marks on it that are probably only a few inches above the ground, like one or
So
two.
what's a traction mark?
Instead of just like a plain old board, there are indents in the wood so that you don't fall or slip.
So this is exactly what I was this is what I was curious about, because up at Devil's Den, they have really nice wooden walkways that have chicken wire on top. And I don't know if you guys have you've been out there. And we had a bridge at our house for a while too, and put chicken wire on top, and it was nice when it was icy. So I just wanted to share that idea with you.
I'll take
I don't know
that
if
into
you
account.
get to the walkways, because you have a lot in here, I think you, but if you do, I'm sure people will greatly appreciate it. So, thanks.
All right.
I would second that. I did have the thought that maybe you're biting off a lot. Secondly, the trail markers and stuff that you're gonna use, because you're showing us sort of as-is pictures, are you gonna show us, are we gonna see like the markers you're gonna use or the bridges you're gonna build or whatever that stuff is? Are you gonna come back and show it to us, or are you gonna
Typically, what we
oversee it?
do for Eagle Scout projects
Yeah.
is that we approve the project and then
Yes.
the details get worked out between Pam and myself, just so that they don't have to come
That's
back and
perfect.
forth with
Great.
us.
I
It's
need
just
a
more of the
reminder.
concept that,
Yeah.
and let's say if we do approve it as he's written it and he doesn't do the walkways because of, the scope is just so large,
Mhm.
we cut that back and not include that in this project.
And then we can report back on
We
it.
will report back on the final
Okay.
and what ends up, but we felt that it was too hard to kind of micromanage
Yeah.
everybody to micromanage.
I have a question. Can you clear out all the fallen wood that's come down over the last couple of
That's another project.
Sure, no
You
problem.
can start it now.
Yeah.
Sign your life away.
Yeah, I could probably
Alright,
get a
forget it.
bunch of like 10-year-olds to clear that away.
Your 10-year-old.
Yeah. Give them something to do.
How's your timing? Because I know you got a lot going on, it's your junior year, and
Yeah.
18 is coming up probably.
Yeah.
For you, right?
I got I'm turning 17 in May,
Oh,
so
okay, so
I
you
got
got
a
time.
little time.
You got some time.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm not totally
you
rushing
need
it.
older.
I would like to get this project done in June. My mom wants it on her birthday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but that's just an excuse for her to make me do it faster.
Hey, good to get the deadline,
Whatever
right?
you can do, right?
He's
Yeah.
turning 21.
That's
You
a good
gotta
reason
get
as
that.
any.
21 and holding.
Yeah, 21 and holding, right. But once we approve it and you've worked out the details with us, you could start anytime, you know that. So don't worry about it. I mean, we just like to make sure that it doesn't impede on public use, like, so, just be mindful in terms of the way you phase it.
Yeah.
That, that we're not closing down the parking lot.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah, for a bunch of
But we'll figure that
Boy
out.
Scouts.
Yeah.
We've done that, but.
Yeah. I'll control them.
Do we have any more questions?
I think it's
Louise?
great.
It's great.
All right.
Okay,
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Anyone want to make a motion to approve Cormac Brown's Eagle Scout project at Woodland Park? You got Amy first, and who's second? Mary Louise, all in favor? Looks unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda, we're done with.
Can I come back and just add one item to my previous report?
Yeah, you can totally.
Yeah.
Since we kind
You just all have
of,
to
we just stuck it in.
No.
Yeah.
I just want to say, and I kind of neglected to say this, I just want to express the appreciation of the committee to Peter Romano and the Land Tech team, because they have been great to work with.
Oh,
They've been super cooperative, once again, dramatically talented guys, and once again, I just want to express our thanks to those guys as we move on.
that's great. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the update on Reed Beach Short Lane project. Pam?
So at the last meeting in February, I did touch on the fact that the project itself was cut by the Board of Selectmen. And I think the most natural thing for me to do at that point was to say, okay, well, what can we do with the money that they are allotting, which hasn't been approved yet, by the way. But I also brought a proposal to Darien Athletic Foundation, who also brought the Darien Foundation representatives to that particular meeting and talked about the extent of what could be with this project, which we talked about here, strolling, running, biking, rollerblading, pathways that would allow strollers to go out in there too. It's not a very ADA compliant pathway within that project, but I extended that to them to say, if this is something that's of interest to you because it would create such an enormous impact in town, that what should be considered is to connect the entire parcel. So the Weed Beach Short Lane project, which is a project of, I would say, 5 to 6 acres, would be a 27-acre project. So with our park master plan, the concept is in there. You can look at the entire parcel with Short Lane included in there, is that there is a connectivity throughout the entire waterfront park. So, and it is so exciting because there is such natural parts of the park that we don't take advantage of today necessarily, that would intertwine even with the beautiful waterfront sandy areas with boardwalks. Would again allow people ADA to enjoy the sand front, that would then lead back into Short Lane and across the entranceway into the other side of Weed Beach. So long story short, they were very, very wide-eyed and interested. The feedback was very, very good. They put me in touch with the executive director, Sarah Woodbury. We met a week later and discussed the potential. And she is going to put me on their agenda for May, and we'll discuss the possibilities. And they're going to at least entertain it. They think they're looking for a project that will create a big impact for the town. And I'm hoping this might be it. So we shall see.
Bigger than Cormac's project?
Totally.
Actually, may I make a comment to build on that? I was recently talking to the president of the garden club, who reminded me gently that they are looking actively for, every few years they have to do a big fundraiser. They are sitting on money that they're looking for, call it $5,000 for a project like they've done before at Weed Beach. They were really excited about the Pear Tree Beach project and would love to be involved. So they asked me to mention it to all of us for the future, so please keep it in mind.
We also met with Garden Club too. Now, who are you speaking of?
Debbie Murray is currently the president, but
Okay.
I'm not sure who you met with. So.
Okay, so we talked about the pollinator pathways, and I'm forgetting Julia.
Yes, and
Juliet.
that's one of the stuff.
Juliet.
Yes.
So they're also interested in Short Lane
Yes,
as well as doing
great.
some sort of pollinator pathway there too.
Oh, great.
And to use some of the funds that they have within this project. So it's interesting how,
The different pockets.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Good.
So we shall see where it goes.
The boardwalk was actually in Weed Beach 1 originally, before we got
Yes,
Short
heard
Lane.
about that.
So that was out because of funding.
Right.
But that was already.
Well, I think the previous commission was always thinking about connecting the site.
Yeah, but we didn't have Short Lane then, so we didn't. We were only going to do it up to the park that we had, the
Right,
boardwalk, so
right.
ADA compliant to
Mhm.
go around this whole parcel.
Right.
So now that you have Short Lane, it's even the
Mhm.
possibilities are bigger.
And to answer your question,
Which one?
last question,
Oh yeah, not the length.
that you had asked Dan Biggs about was the length of the pathway and the width of the pathway, which the width of the pathway could be anywhere from 8 to 10 feet wide, but the complete linear feet of the path would be 4,000 linear
Just under
feet.
a mile.
Just under a
Yeah.
mile. And perhaps there could be another couple sways in that pathway to get it to a mile, which would be nice.
Just for the Short Lane part.
No, the
whole
entire
thing.
parcel.
You mean like the whole
The whole
doing the
parcel.
whole thing?
The 27 acres.
I thought, oh, so the 4,000 feet is not just the parking
No,
space.
no,
Got
it's
it.
the entire,
Okay, so it would be a mile if you did a whole path. Got it.
yes.
So I have two questions. One is, would people be able to run on this path?
Yes.
Okay, good. I wanted to confirm that.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to get a confirmation.
Mhm.
The second thing is just following up on the pollinator pathway,
Mhm.
which is so important and so wonderful. I recently went to a very scary talk about how our insects are diminishing rapidly and how important it is for us to plant native plants and trees and so on.
Right.
Is there anything in our, I don't know, commission rules or whatever it is, about planting native things, or is there, can we make an effort to do that? Can we?
Without a doubt. As a matter of fact, Lori Bora
Great.
and Juliet and another colleague that she met with, her name is hard to pronounce, Davika, I think, or something.
Topeka? Topeka.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we all sat down last week and talked about this pollinator pathway, and we talked about the Parks and Recreation Department, having a commitment to at least, and following their journey within the town to support what they're trying to do. Whether, they said the pathway seems a little misleading because it's not necessarily a pathway.
No, it's not a
But it's about
visual
the
pathway.
residents buying into the fact that if everybody plants something native, would create the pathway.
Yeah, that's right. From the Hudson on over. It's great. But the other problem is, not only are the pollinators important, but also the insects that feed on native things, like caterpillars are critical.
Right.
So when we're planting all these non-native trees that are not encouraging those kind of
Right.
things, of course, the insects, no birds,
Right.
and birds don't need to migrate and can't migrate if they're not.
Exactly. I could tell you, we should all support that. If we get this project off the ground, we will absolutely
So,
have.
I know the Tree Conservancy, when they've been putting in these
It's
border
always
plus trees,
needed.
they rank the trees by how many different types of insects they support.
It's
So that's
fantastic.
been a high priority for the town with that project.
I think it's critical.
I do too.
Good,
Now,
thank you.
timing wise, Pam, you obviously are not gonna be able to do that this summer.
It's a great question, thank you. What we have done, Dan Biggs and I, even though the funding got cut, we are continuing on getting the proposals and to be approved. So sewer commission got deferred to next month because sewer commission members wanted to walk the property and see for themselves what exactly was under their management, in order for us to get the approval and the attorney language for us to utilize the property. So hopefully that will go through. And then the final approval process will be P&Z, which is scheduled for May. So once those approvals are through, quite honestly, if they buy into this project, it would be a donation back to the town. And the possibilities of construction starting, say, in late fall and being ready by next summer it's a possibility because the approval process has already been done.
What
Or
about,
shortly. The other part would have to be going through the weed beat section, but.
what about this summer? The short lane area in terms of improving the look? What's gonna happen there?
Not yet, because the funding, if the funding goes through, which they do give to us, if it goes through the $50,000, which would help with the look of it, won't be available until July 1st. So is it possible July 1st and August to do some work down there that doesn't affect the public? And, it's summer, so you want to do the less invasive work there is, down there. But we intend on letting people picnic there.
Yeah, we have that cleared area that they
It's
did last year.
cleared, it's
But it
permeated.
drops way
Well,
down.
it drops, but not the land
flat
above it.
No,
Right.
that's,
What we would like to do, what I'd like to do with that 50,000 before, if nothing comes of it right now in terms of potential partnership, is to at least try to find a way with this money to fill the wetlands by continue the mitigation process, so that we can find access from that property to the beachfront. So today, when you utilize that property, there's no access to the beach. You have to come out of the property, get in the parking lot, and walk to the beach. So the hope is that we can fill it, grade it, seed it right down to the water. We won't, how will we have additional beach sand? You know, no, none of that part of the project will probably be able to get done with the funds that we have. But I'm pretty confident that we could at least establish that beautiful rolling hillside.
And then the timing would work great because you could see it in the fall.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
that's a
kind of
good
a
point.
goal, but again, we want to make sure that if we do have a potential partnership between the two organizations, that
Well,
be
yeah.
part of the
Sure.
project, right? So,
But worst case scenario,
Mhm.
would you be able to get the work done in time to seed it? Like if you have the money on
I-
July
I'll
1st?
have to go out to, go out to bid
Right,
and try to figure out how much we can get done with that 50,000,
right.
right? So, but like I said.
Yeah, because then
Maybe.
you'll miss a bunch of months if you can't get it on, we'll still be looking at the money in the spring.
Right. Spring, and
Right.
it's not great to seed in spring
Right.
anymore.
So that's sort of a deadline, that's a good point.
We'll make it work.
Let's see,
Well, fingers crossed.
fingers crossed.
Or maybe we can just plant milkweed and it'll all be
Do that.
fine. A monarch butterfly.
I'd love to be filled with that.
Let's have a
Yeah,
monarch
that'd be great.
butterfly.
Or a poppy field, like California.
Oh,
Fantastic.
And then
Let's be
everybody would come and
creative.
we'd have selfie sticks and we'd be great. Thank you, Pam. This is awesome that you've reached out to these, private, like these organizations, these
To help.
funders for potential money. I mean, like, you were able to
Yeah.
not let, that stop you
Nope.
from going, and that you were just gonna go get those approvals and
Well,
hopefully
I think
get
it's
some
an
funding.
exciting enough project that I'm just glad that they saw that too.
Potential.
And, yeah, the potential of it is just enormous. I mean, it is, Highland is great too.
I know.
But this is a waterfront area that I think there's a multitude of things that can be done here year-round that people can enjoy. So I'm excited about it, so we'll see where it goes. And if it doesn't go through, we'll keep marching ahead.
Thanks for
Good
keeping
job.
us posted. We
You're
can
welcome.
Lobby our local friends. Okay, the next is update on the Dilla property. Also,
Diller property. Okay, so what's happening with the Diller property? It did get pushed out. We had some opposition from some neighbors in regards to a few different things. Parking spaces, where exactly those parking spaces were, the wetlands and how, as some neighbors had claimed, they witnessed that it was knee-deep, high, and how could a trail go through? It is one of the worst wet seasons there has been
Yeah.
on record, so they've also asked to have the trails marked and flagged so that they can actually visualize where those trails are. It's a very good idea. So the commission itself had approved that, and they're working on flagging the area right now, and then we're gonna go back in April and see where April 9th is the date. Or, yes, let's see, which commission were we at?
P&Z?
I believe it was P&Z, where it was.
No, you wrote it in.
hard to
So
keep
what
all
did
this
EPC
commission.
I'm telling you, I've been in so many
Didn't
commissions right
EPC
now.
have to go back through it again and then meet?
That's what it was. Yes,
I watched,
EPC.
I watched the video
EPC.
while I
So-
was doing something around the
right.
house,
So it
so.
hasn't gotten to P&Z.
Because I had heard about it from a friend.
That's
Are
what
you
I-
concerned about the parking space issue? I was a little concerned about the parking space issue.
It's on our property, it's not, I think they were concerned too, is that was in the wetlands.
Well,
And-
that's what I think is because if you push the parking spaces, this is on Nutmeg, so they, on that side of the street, so if you're pushing the parking spaces into essentially where the sidewalk is now,
Mhm.
then you have to move the sidewalk in, you're getting your feet wet pretty
Right.
quickly. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
according.
mean, there's no other place that we can put them though. I think we went through this, right?
You can't.
Yeah.
And you don't want people parking at the school, you're not supposed to.
Right.
To
Or
use
the only
space.
other thing I was thinking, and this may be a wild thing, is that you designate a couple of spaces at the end of the parking lot
At the school?
at school.
They're so tight on parking that they're not
I
gonna
know
wanna
it's
give us
tight.
to us.
Yeah.
I just thought that was sounded tricky from what I
And I
listened
think
to.
maybe what could be done, and maybe there's a compromise, and I'm just speaking out of my own thoughts, is that maybe there's not as many.
Right. Because how many were?
Six now.
Six, I think
So
that's too
perhaps you do 3 or 4.
Right.
You have an area that you can pull over and park. I mean, it's kind of useless having a space that you would invite people to walk in, but there's no place to park for it.
I
So
agree,
we
but
do
I
need
think
to
it's
set
tough.
aside
Yeah.
something and
Yes.
see how it goes.
I always feel like there's not a lot of parking spaces at Woodland, but
Mm-hmm.
it somehow works.
Right.
You know, so, and it's not maybe that dissimilar in the size layout.
I think it's also very much we were just there, very much a neighborhood space.
Mhm.
I
And
find
then the
that
neighbors
unlike
would be-
Selleck's, because of the parkland area, I mean, you can go
Right.
on the other
Yeah.
side where the neighbors are, but
Yeah.
I felt like you saw a lot of people walking in and out with dogs, like
Yeah.
on that sidewalk.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right, but it's not ideal. We've never had enough space there.
I think everybody agreed though that the idea of taking the runners
Mhm.
off of the streets and giving them
You
safe
have to.
places
Completely.
is a great idea.
I heard they were running in Woodland Park and that someone hurt their leg and they were banned from running in the park after that. Because if you've been to Woodland recently, it's like very rocky,
uneven.
it's uneven, it's
That's
dangerous.
cross-country.
And they don't have any place, they're so desperate that they had to run in this park that's dangerous. And now,
It's like the mud run.
it's just, you know.
The
Well,
Tough Mudder.
I don't think
Tough
Diller's.
Mudder,
I
Tough
don't
Mudder.
think, I don't think Diller's gonna be any
No,
better.
no,
That's the
cross-country.
problem.
Yeah.
But Diller,
We're used to running cross
No,
country.
but Diller will be, I mean, the difference between Diller and Woodland is that they're gonna make, this is being done by a firm and they're doing the,
Oh, yeah.
like
Crushed
gravel,
stone.
crushed stone, it's gonna drain. Right now, we have nothing at Woodland, it's just,
It's
you know.
really wet. Have you driven by?
Yes,
there?
I drive by it
Oh,
every
you
day.
can do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Oh, I
It's
drive by it
really
every day.
wet.
Yeah.
It is tremendously wet this year, but we walked to Baker the other day and we were like swimming almost on
Yeah.
the
It's,
path.
the
But
ground.
there's not a track going.
The
through.
ground has not had any way of actually drying out. The weather since October and through winter, it's just
It's been
not.
unrelenting.
So hopefully we have somewhat of a dry spring.
The nice thing about, like, they are using a firm that would, in theory, deal with all these, I mean, if this is the worst, then we're looking at the worst, which is great,
Right.
you know, they
Yeah,
can
that's
figure it out,
That's true.
you know.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Hopefully
So
we can deal
what
with
is,
it.
what are the sort of mental machinations somebody goes through on considering how many parking spots you need for this particular effort? Right, because there's no way of knowing how many people are gonna show up and how many,
So I think it's
So-
detrimental that you put something there. So they were able to.
We put
put
4 to
together
5 when we did our plan.
Mhm.
This is our plan.
yeah, I'm
from
still
Oakland,
missing
from
some
what
sort
the
of
Kansas-
science behind it. Did he?
Yeah, but you
He
don't
also
know
put
right
it like
now.
closer to, I noticed that when we did it, ours is closer to the back end of Nutmeg, like closer to Hollow Tree, not closer to the high school. I don't know if you saw
I
it.
don't remember, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I barely remember.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I just happened
oh,
to have
yeah.
it. You see it?
Sarah,
So
did you see this?
it's,
And I think the neighbors would be upset about that if that's what they're at.
well, right now that house is for sale, the closest house to that
It's,
spot.
I think it's Binder.
It's Binder?
They weren't the ones complaining. It was the ones across the street.
The ones across.
Right, right.
I mean, you know, we're gonna, you know,
That's,
I'm gonna.
that was based on space. You know,
Okay,
in
so,
terms of-
so there
I
isn't
still
sort of
think we heard
a
the
ratio
the
that says,
parking
okay, we
space
think
issue.
this many people
That
are
might
gonna
make
come,
things
so
back
we
to
need
us.
this many. You know, you do the Wheat Beach parking lot, we
Yeah,
need
we
this
did
many.
that, but this space is a little different in the sense that the path itself is geared towards the use of these kids and doing their sports. It's like also a benefit to town residents too, but,
Which is why we're
but,
involved.
yeah. But other than that, I mean, honestly, we've tried for many years to put something there that worked.
Yeah.
We did the dog park was dog
Yeah,
there, I
no,
mean, we've had this problem.
Tennis, pool.
We took tennis, pool, we've done everything, and nothing seems to work. At least a path has
This is
a,
nice.
and it also has the least impact on, you know, in terms of open, how much needs to be exposed and, you know, I mean, it's the least
Right.
impact on the property.
I agree, I'm all for it, I'm all
I'm
for
all
the
for it.
idea.
I think that
I
we're
just
gonna have some
wonder about the
logistical
parking.
issues
Oh,
with the
yes.
parking. I don't think,
But the nice thing is EPC's on it and the neighbors have weighed in on what their
Oh,
thoughts
yeah.
are, and we'll just have to wait for
yeah,
that
no, we're
process
gonna have to
get through.
wait, yeah.
I mean, you look at Stony Brook,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Stony Brook has what, place for 6?
Lots of parking. I mean, well,
Well,
ish.
ish, right?
And no-
Small, but
and
it
people
has,
don't know.
but you have to have something to use it.
No.
So
It's just hard because it's such, with the high school, it's such a congested area,
It is.
and with the wetlands, it's so tight there.
And
I think-
there are more homes there, I mean, Stony Brook's sort of a.
Right, yeah,
Right,
and you've
so
got all,
very
and you've got
generous
people
property.
who are gonna have parking spaces directly across the street from their homes, and that's tricky.
So I think Sarah's raised an important issue, probably these neighbors are gonna come and visit us Well, maybe.
They
went to EPC.
yeah, they went to EPC, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Well,
if
there'd be
they-
another public hearing with
So
PNC.
we
Yeah.
probably want to have.
But
our
I don't
ducks in
think
order
we are
about
gonna
that.
need to deal with it that way because we've already approved it.
Yeah.
This is just
Maybe.
environmental
Oh, good.
review.
I wonder if they're gonna
We've
come
already-
back,
I
I
mean,
wonder
they
if
would
EPC is
came-
gonna come
back
back to us about the parking spaces. Was my question.
Well, the plan is the DAF's plan, the Area
Yeah.
Athletic Foundation, so we're not, and their company
Yeah.
that they've retained, we didn't design it.
No.
We approved it. But we did bring up the parking, we
They're
did.
doing
Right.
Parking was brought up when they came to
No,
talk
I
to us,
know,
we
I
did.
know, I know.
So, and they said they would address it and work on it, and, this is where.
Okay, so they'll work through it.
They'll work through it,
It's
and
not
then-
gonna
and
be on us.
if EPC
Okay.
says that the parking spaces are a no-go, then they're gonna come back to us, right?
Or P and Z, one of those,
Or
one of
P&Z.
those will kick it back.
Then, so that's what I'm saying, in that context,
Right.
it may very well come back to us.
So we just better have.
It
our-
could be, or that the Darien Athletic Foundation works it out with their engineer as to how they come up with a solution. It really is their plan to donate to the town
Yeah,
and to the
Sure.
school.
We don't need to
So
Yeah.
we just gave them the okay that we
Right.
thought that.
To pursue.
Pursue it.
Right.
pursue the idea that, and the concept
Yeah.
itself.
Can I kick up a potential problem that maybe I don't think we've talked about, which is because the parking, and I'm very for this idea. I'm
So,
I want to solve the problems because I want it to work.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's right next to the high school. How do we know that the high school kids aren't going to park
Oh,
in the
that was a-
spot?
Oh, yeah, it's a limit,
Is that
time
kind
limit.
No, that was a concern too.
Okay.
No, they talked about that. The neighbors
Yeah.
were saying, yeah,
Right.
because the.
Kids will just park
You
there.
just say time limit on it, because
Okay.
the kids have to be there all day, you say 1
2
hour.
hours,
Why
2
would you
hours, an hour,
be there more
right.
than an hour? This is
Yeah.
a small
Right.
space. So
But
if
then
you
what,
do-
is somebody going to ticket them?
They
Show
we
them?
have them all over town. We have them like in front, in
They
town.
do. And they
We-
get enforced in town, but this
Yeah.
is not town, so it's like, I mean,
If you're-
maybe
if
it's
it's
town.
Yeah,
Sorry,
they should-
of course, that's not what I mean. What I mean is it's not in town. So it's like people that are
Yeah.
walking
Mhm.
around,
Yeah, yeah,
around the
yeah,
shops
right.
and stuff that are doing the monitoring. I don't know that they will go over here just for that. I just,
Isn't there a gentleman?
I bring
They
it up
go-
to solve it, not
Right.
No,
because
no, no,
I
no, no, I
yeah.
think it's a great idea, and also they monitor all the parking, even in the
Do they?
trains, yeah, and
All
stuff.
around?
Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
let me
They
tell you,
do. They
they're
go around.
really
You're
good
right.
at it.
It is
That's
a
true,
route,
they do go
though.
back and forth.
Yeah.
It is a route.
It is a route, and he
Yeah.
marks it, and he knows when
That's
they
true.
they
And they're
park.
professional. They do
And
get you.
Honestly, they're probably not gonna check until someone complains, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, and it sounds like we have people that are interested.
Okay.
I'll let them
Definitely.
handle it.
Neighbors.
I mean,
Advise
that's all,
neighbors.
that's car's been there for 4 hours, can you
It's
just
a new
check
source
on
of revenue for them.
Yeah.
Sarah, can you get, is it like 3 families? Is it 10?
It was 2 in particular, but then on that, with the parking spaces, but then there were
There were about 4 or
others.
5 that came.
Yeah.
4 or 5 families.
One-
Mhm.
Yeah, there
we
were
wouldn't do
4,
well by them.
5 actually, there were 5.
But
Yeah.
Mostly not
EPC
On,
listened-
no, they're all back on Holly,
Holly.
and one was on Hollow Tree, I think.
Goes on electric.
Yeah, so they abutted on the, I don't know what side it is, what
But I'm
direction.
interested.
The other side,
They
away from
do
the
parking now?
Nutmeg.
EPC does parking, I just was confused. as
I don't
to-
know.
The wetlands, if they're involved.
Because it was the
Right.
wetlands.
I know why they were involved, but I just was
Because, so there's so
surprised.
much water in this one space that is right next to the road.
Mhm.
So
I know
if
where
they
it is.
have to push the parking space into where the sidewalk is, then
Right.
where does the trail go?
Right.
The trail would have to go through what is
I
now a pond.
They might have to just do mitigation, like we're doing.
There's mitigation and then there's,
Right,
it's deep.
Well, maybe they'll just elevate the path, I don't know.
they can.
But
That's-
then they're saying, then it's disrupting the flow of all the water by putting anything
Yeah.
But it's certainly when they
Right,
did their
little domino.
walkthroughs,
Yeah.
it was not, it has
We just
not
wanna
been this wet.
move on.
Yeah,
No.
it's a good
in
idea,
long
thank
time,
you.
So,
Okay.
we're gonna move
Yeah,
on.
we gotta
Yes,
move on,
fine.
sorry.
Update
Not
on,
digress, but I just
Highland
wanted to give heads up.
Update on Highland Farms property.
Farms. The update on Highland Farms is that the Board of Selectmen has put through $600,000 to Board of Finance, and that's as far as I know. So until that gets passed, then that will go to the RTM, and then it will be, if that gets passed, then they'll be looking to do the parking lots come the summertime. And once those parking lots get, and the regrading and that, all that work, if that gets done, then according to the special application with P&Z, then Parks and Recreation will finally be able to schedule it and the people can use it.
Okay. There's a parking lot now, right, that they put in, like.
There is, but it's so incredibly muddy and wet,
I know,
it's to the
there's
point
no gravel
that,
on it.
But is that where the parking lot's gonna go?
yes,
Okay.
it's marked out, the
Alright.
other one is not marked out. John City, chairman of P&Z, wanted us to put gravel down, but quite honestly, it just didn't make any sense for us to spend that amount of money
When you were just
on
gonna come back.
$16,000 when we didn't know whether, we couldn't program on it, and we didn't know what that's worth a few residents coming and walking on it,
Right.
so
Okay,
that's it.
so that's why I opened that.
I just asked a random question about
Sure.
the property. So once it's usable, like, let's say we're gonna use it for soccer or
Right.
whatever, children, what are we gonna do about the geese?
But I saw them today.
Yeah, there's
They're on my
hundreds.
property though.
I heard
Hundreds.
nights.
They're on my
Nights
property too.
flying.
Yeah, it's hundreds.
They're-
What are you gonna do?
Well,
What's the plan?
The plan would be, in my opinion, is that like anything, Tilly, Cherry Lawn, especially Cherry Lawn,
Right.
the more activity that takes place on
Sure.
that
And
park,
they don't like
the
it.
more
They're gone.
they naturally will dissipate. We do have a few examples throughout the state of different parks and recreation departments and how they handle their geese, and they've claimed it's worked for them. This is outside of the dog company that we've used to chase the geese, but on that particular property, there's no dogs off leash allowed. So that, yes, could we maybe talk to the Oxbridge on a certain timing and get that approved? Possibly. So, yes, we will have to deal with that. And-
Because you couldn't have the kids running around playing soccer with the
No,
geese.
but I will say this, and I've talked to my park supervisor about it, it's been big discussion on our fields, because we obviously do have geese on the town fields, and we have soccer out there too. My town also has a geese issue across the street at our Calvin Lake School, elementary school. It is our biggest elementary school that has the most sports on there 24/7, and there's geese there every single line.
Oh, God.
But our Parks Department mows it, and and I've spent all those years out there with my kids, I never noticed it.
I have a question
And it
for
was
you.
an issue, so.
That house that's adjacent, like where the parking area is, like it shares like a fence line with Oxbridge. They're gone now, but I remember seeing like silhouettes of, I don't know if they were coyotes
Oh,
or
yeah,
dogs
they were.
on that property.
Yeah.
And I thought that maybe that they had them there for the geese and now they've been removed, but it may be something to look into if they were,
Oh, that's it.
because silhouettes can sometimes be effective.
It was effective on me, because I drove by and I was like,
It
And
could.
you may
I
also
was like, what are those things?
Yeah, right. You may just want-
I would
find-
tell you-
maybe ask what they were for, if they were
But
for
I
that.
will tell you that those examples work the least.
Oh,
Some of the things.
okay.
The owl didn't work on
They
my
may
property.
work
Oh, they
for
do.
a little bit, and then
Not for the
so
house.
there are other
They
things.
get used to
They get
them
used
not
to it.
moving.
There's
Yes.
been flashes of light machines, there's.
Yeah,
so-
sounds.
Right, so
Yeah.
we'll look into some different
They're very-
things.
There are a
But I
lot
think
of things,
we-
we're not talking about it.
There is, but there is no activity
Yes.
out there, and I think once activity is put out there, I
Sure.
think we will see the natural part of them go away.
That's true.
And if they don't, well, we have a little small budget to work with.
There's no room for
Bring your dog
anything anymore.
to geese control.
Yep.
Okay,
Unleash.
okay,
Yep.
the next, are we done with?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment?
I just have a
Adele?
question.
Okay.
Pam, do you know when you're gonna, when the Board of Finance will be reviewing your budget?
I do not know that, I'm sorry. I don't recall that date even being told to me yet, so.
I know they're starting,
If,
they're beginning now.
what I could do is I can find that out for you and then just send a email out to the
Okay,
commission.
sounds excellent.
Okay?
Thanks, Adele. Next item on the agenda is the director's report. You again? Sounds like I have a lot of it.
The Pam
Yeah, can I do that?
You want your report?
I'm gonna do a quick skip,
Yeah,
but
Sorry.
I listened.
highlights.
Yeah, the highlights. But I did go through here just to show you, especially with this security guard hut,
Oh
the
my
amount
God.
of approvals that we had to go through
Because it was an
has
undertaking.
been incredible. And we got through every single one of them. Tuesday night being the final one, P and Z, with giving me enough time now to work with the building director, which I'm meeting with tomorrow, along with park supervisor and assistant director, to make the final approvals to have it built and delivered on May 1st. And in the meantime, electrician work and all that, but it has been eye-opening. So I did
like
make
building
sure, I made sure that for this little 6x9 building, that you understood how much work it's been. I did mention in here about Darien Athletic Foundation and Darien Foundation with Sarah Woodbury. And programs and parks, I just gave a quick synopsis on what's happening with Jamie Dawson, who now is being referred to as Jamie Gore because she's been married.
I know, it's on your name tag.
Oh,
Congratulations.
Jamie, oh, that's why
Jamie Dawson's gone forever.
No more Jamie Dawson.
So, you know, she has daddy-daughter dance coming up March 29th. There's Trails Discovery Day at Solid Woods. There's the 3rd annual Wee Beach Fest. There's a fireworks celebration. There's the 2020 celebration. We have a lot going on. And, yeah, I think that's all that needs to be said. To tell you the truth, we're very busy. We're doing lots of good things, and the office is working really collaboratively together and enjoying every bit of it.
The next item is the chairman's report. I didn't get a report from Lori, so we're off the hook on that one. And then we already took care of new business earlier, thanks to your suggestion. And now, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Oh, can I ask a question before we adjourn, because it's technically business? If I just, because I missed the February meeting, how are the Dogs of Wheat Beach going? The pilot program, is that still going well? Has there been any negative feedback?
It went very well. The only feedback I got that would have been slightly negative is from our assistant director, who stated on occasion he would see some dogs either off leash or on leash, not in the specific area they were supposed to be in. He redirected them. There didn't seem to be any issues there whatsoever. Cleanliness, absolutely fine. We replenished bags when we needed to. If signs came down, we replenished the signs. I haven't heard any negative feedback from the public, nor have I heard any, positive about the experience.
Right.
So, no word, good word. And I did want to add one thing as well, if I could, is that I wanted to bring to your attention as we look through the calendar of scheduled meetings, that in October, our scheduled meeting is October 16th. I will be away that week. So either we still have it, or we can add to push it up to October 23rd. I did speak to Lori about this.
Which
She has no
one does she
problem.
prefer? Which her preference?
No,
With the
she
vote
said
on
she has
that?
no problem if we want to move it to the 23rd, as long as we could either think about it, come back next month, and decide on it rather than.
Okay.
But I just thought we would either push it up a week and there would be no
What
worries.
does she have a preference?
The
She has no
ninth,
preference.
the 9th is Yom Kippur. 23rd looks like something.
It's my birthday.
Oh, so maybe we don't want to celebrate your birthday.
Or maybe we should.
I'll take
have
minutes.
it
I'll take minutes for you.
and we can have
I'll
cake.
take minutes for you, because that's the nice
We'll,
boss that I
we'll be
am.
missing you that night.
Yeah.
Do you want to just tentatively schedule that, and if anybody's got an issue, they can bring it to you, or?
Well, yeah, let's come back next month in April and we'll make it official, if you want to do that. If not, I don't know how usually, I could either have Jim Coglin attend the meeting on the 16th and my place.
And again, that would be a first, another first. I think you've been at every meeting I've
Right.
since you've joined.
Great.
So,
that's a possibility, and he's always welcome to do that, so.
Pam, a reminder on the end date for dogs off leash.
March 31st. Yeah.
So it's coming up.
And I also, the reason too, on that subject of the 23rd, the reason I was saying maybe push it, because it's such a busy month in budget.
yeah.
So budget to me is really important to me in terms of what we're coming up against, especially with these projects I have going on and stuff. So I actually would prefer to be at that meeting.
Okay.
So
you
if we
want,
can push it to the 23rd, I think it
yeah,
would be
23rd is, I
helpful
think, the only time to do it.
to all of us.
Do we need to have a motion? How does that have to happen?
I think we'll do that at next
Okay,
meeting.
just tell,
and
yeah, we'll just tell
everybody.
Lori.
Put that on the agenda for next.
Yeah.
Okay, to
Yeah.
the meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Sarah, second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Which one is that?
Erica, all in favor? Thank you.
Yay!